Hi there and welcome back to MassiveSynth.com tutorials, where today we're going to be doing a remake of the bass sound from the track Infinity by Infinity Inc. and starting off for this month of December a series of deep house tutorials on Native Instruments Massive. So this came in as a request to remake that sound that you heard at the beginning of this tutorial, this Infinity Inc. bass sound. So let's go ahead and create a new sound in Massive and start programming that bass sound. Start off with oscillator 1. I'm going to take the pitch down 1 octave and just detune this ever so slightly, so it's minus 11.95. And I'm going to change it to a square saw 2, keep the wavetable position all the way to the right, intensity on full, and bring the amp down a little bit, and only going to be using filter 1 for this sound. So we can go ahead and route that oscillator just to filter 1. And next up, oscillator 2, we can have a smooth square, and I'm going to take the pitch down 1 octave but do a similar thing in the other direction to this oscillator. So this is going to be minus 12.5, and I'm going to pull the wavetable position round to just kind of past halfway there, keep intensity on full, bring the amp down to a similar level as oscillator 1, and again route to filter 1. And now bring in oscillator 3, and I'm going to take the pitch of this up by 7 semitones, and this is going to create a nice sort of chord kind of inversion with the sound really. Going to make it a square saw 2, keep the push the wavetable position all the way to the right, intensity can go on full, and keep the amp of this on full and route to filter 1. So that's creating that nice sort of chord-like element to the sound. I'm also going to be using the modulation oscillator, so turn that on. I'm going to take the pitch of this up by 7 semitones, and we're just going to be using the phase mode here and keep the phase around halfway, and it's going to be modulating the phase of oscillator 2. So it sounds a little bit extreme at the moment, but once we start doing some envelope modulation, the sound's going to come together a little bit more. So in filter 1, I'm going to use a low pass 4 filter. It's going to make things nice and deep. Pull the resonance down to pretty much 0. Make sure the volume of the filters all the way up, and the mix slider between the two filters is all the way towards mix 1. And we can pull the cutoff right down here, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing some envelope modulation on this cutoff frequency. So we can go ahead and set that up now. So drag the crosshair of envelope 1 to the first modulation slot in there, and just drag the modulation amount up so it's kind of just past the F. And we want a bit more of a kind of pluck really. I mean, you can back off the attack a little bit and keep the attack level on full. Pull the decay down ever so slightly, and the decay level, or the sustain, right down. Push the release down a little bit. It's kind of shaping the tone of the bass quite nicely really. And next thing we could do to sort of emphasize that pluck a little bit more is use a second envelope but modulate the pitch of all 3 oscillators and the modulation oscillator here. So drag this crosshair over to the first pitch modulation slot, take the modulation amount up by plus 12. Make sure you do the same for the modulation oscillator as well. And here we're just going to have take the sustain right down, no sustain on this at all. The decay very kind of low, round about there. Attack very sharp, all the way to the left, and pull the attack level down a bit. So you see if it goes a bit, if you push the decay up you hear the effect a bit more, but that's just giving it a little bit more of an extra percussive element to the bass really. Okay, next we can set up the amp envelope, just pull the attack right up. And just keep everything else the same really. Attack level up, decay halfway, sustain up, release can stay around quarter of the way up, and that's fine. So next thing to add with the sound really is some effects, and I noticed on the original by Infinity Inc. there's quite a bit of reverb on the bass sound. I mean, if you were kind of producing this track with this kind of bass sound, you'd maybe add the reverb externally on like a bus send, so you can control the sort of bottom end on the reverb, EQ it and sidechain it to the kick and stuff like that. But for the purpose of remaking this sound and trying to get it as close as we can to the original, I'm going to put the reverb on in massive. So select a normal reverb and just pull the dry wet right down, pull the size down, so we're going to keep it quite subtle. Density and colour, density and colour can go up, so we're just hearing a nice sort of brighter tone to that reverb. Next thing we could do is add a bit of chorus. This is going to really thicken up the sound a bit. Take that offset right down and pull the rate down a little bit. So the offset's around quarter of the way, dry wet's around quarter of the way, and the rate and the depth around about halfway. Pull the rate down to a little bit less than halfway, so it's pointing at the R. So that's just giving quite a nice thick sort of warmth to the sound. And push the high shelf right up on the EQ, and also the low shelf, just to give a bit more bottom end. And we also go over to the voicing tab next. We want to make the sound monophonic and give the sound 2 voices. And the next thing to do really is this glide by default is halfway up. We want a little bit of glide with this sound, but not that much, so I'm going to pull this glide time right down. So you've just got a little bit of sort of glide in between the notes. And an important thing to note here really is this oscillator phases, because we want to make sure this is not checked for this kind of bass sound. When it's checked, it re-triggers all the phases of the oscillators, which is cool for like maybe a dubstep or electro or something that you want really consistent sort of sound. But this is like a sort of warm analogy type bass, so we want that sort of, by not ticking this, we're sort of mimicking the behaviour of old school kind of analog synths, which is what we want with this sort of sound really. So you've got that nice warm, chorusy, phasey sort of sound, and then when you're using this in the mix setting, you could kind of bounce the loop out maybe, so it's not the phases aren't constantly changing during the course of the track. You bounce like a 4-bar loop of it out or something, and just put quite a nice bit of compression on it as well to smooth it out, because if you look over here the levels are all over the place, but as soon as you check that, you lose that warmth, that chorusy kind of effect. So we could also just put a little bit of clip distortion in, just to warm it up a bit more. Pull the drive down. And I think that's pretty much the sound come together now. One thing I did notice when I was playing around with this sound and putting it together was the modulation oscillator, how this can affect the sound, this phase and stuff. So it gets a lot more nasally when you push that phase amount up, and a bit more smoother when you turn it right off. So I mean, I had it around halfway. And also, if you could change the sound a little bit further as well by modulating the phase of oscillator 3. So yeah, that's it with the sound really. I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. I hope you found it useful. Any questions, as usual, just give us a shout, and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.